Spiritual warfare. Yes, it's real. People believe in this. People believe that they need prayer warriors to overcome evil in the world. They take this very, very seriously. I want to talk about this thing called spiritual warfare today. And I want to talk about it, explain why I see it as being very dangerous and very harmful to people. And as I do, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel as well as to click the bell so you're notified of future videos. Spiritual warfare is based on a belief that there's an essence, a presence, a power of good and a power of evil at work in the world, and that these powers of good and evil somehow impact and influence our lives on earth. People understand this power of good to be God or Jesus or Spirit or angels, and the power of evil, the devil or demons or some other dark force. The thing about this belief is that it made sense in a different kind of era, in a pre-rational era, but it doesn't really make sense anymore. It's grown out of historic Judaism and Christianity, but it's also been adopted in more, I'll say, contemporary alternative spiritual paths. But it really only works in a pre-Enlightenment era whenever people didn't understand what was really happening. Now, good, the power of good, people pretty much understand that. We experience goodness in life. We experience love and compassion and beauty and awe and all those wonderful things. So we have a sense of there being good in our lives. But evil is more difficult for us to comprehend. We don't quite get where it comes from. And in a pre-Enlightenment era, that had to be very confusing. So that when people would see that one person died of the plague and another didn't, they assumed that there must have been an evil force at work, or that when a natural disaster happened, that one person's house was blown down and the other person's was fine right next door, that there must have been some spirit of evil at work that took out that person's house. They must have been sinful or something was wrong with them. The funny thing is, people don't often question about why you win the lottery. Of course, you buy the ticket, but people generally don't assume that it's because God likes you better or that your angel picked out your winning numbers. Instead, you got lucky and won the lottery. See, we understand things differently. We understand that good and evil are part of human makeup. They're part of what makes us human beings. That we each have the capacity to do good and to do evil, to be exemplary people and to not be, to be selfish and self-absorbed. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung explained this in a very helpful way. He talked about each of us having a shadow self, and it's that shadow that Jung understood as being where our insecurities were that led to feelings of guilt and shame, that when left unexamined would grow into things like jealousy and hatred and wanting to do people wrong or take control of situations or be greedy and take more than what was your due and begin to act maliciously in the world. So from that perspective, Jung understood that these evil tendencies were part of us, but that we had control over. And that makes a great deal of sense when we start looking at the things that people do that are harmful to others. When we look, there's also systemic kinds of evil, and that can be hard for us to understand. But the systemic evil really draws us back to this basic shadow that Jung talked about. But it's a shadow that becomes shared by multiple people and forms a system. So for instance, think about any war in the world, whether that's the war in the Ukraine, whether that's the war in Chad, whether that's the failed nation of Haiti. What's going on there? Some people, some group of people, some leaders want control. They want to take land that isn't theirs. They want to own a country that isn't theirs. And it's leading to war, and they don't care who suffers. It's about selfishness. Or think about the increase in diseases today, like cancers and diabetes and asthma. What's happening there? Is that some form of evil? Well, perhaps it is. Corporations and others are pumping all kinds of pollution into the world. They've also modified our food with all kinds of chemicals and additives and overprocessed it. And we know from research that this is increasing all these various diseases. What about natural disasters? Those are confusing for people. Well, we know that climate change is at work. We know that the climate is changing, and that's caused by human impact on the climate. So all these things really get back down to that shadow self. And that becomes the reservoir for our potential for evil. But it's not the way Flip Wilson, the 1960s comedian, described it. It's not that the devil made me do it. It's that we do it. And the problem with spiritual warfare and that ideology is that it prevents us from taking responsibility for our actions, for the things we do as individuals, for the things that we allow the social systems of society to do. It prevents us from transforming life to something better, better in the way we treat each other, better for the planet. Spiritual warfare makes us impotent in face of the real problems of evil that we face. When push comes to shove, I really don't care what people believe. They want to believe in something, that's up to them. But in this case, I think spiritual warfare is very dangerous because it abdicates responsibility for our actions and for our actions as human beings on the planet. And so it's from that perspective that I encourage you to begin looking and considering what it is that we need to do to take responsibility to make the world a better place. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it with others, leave me some comments, and know that I appreciate the time you spend with spirituality beyond borders. Thank you.